Hey, how are you? SliceofOtaku, and the latest homeworld arc of Steven Universe was a lot of things to a lot of people. An extravagant event of epic proportions, an eerie yet fantabulous entrance into an alien society, a boatload of wish fulfillment and fan service, long-awaited representation for many effeminate male viewers, a rapid-fire approach to stabilizing a series riddled with pacing issues, and a satisfactory conclusion to the story as we know it. As for me, I'd say a little bit of all those things, but what ultimately ended up hitting me the hardest was something I didn't expect. And to that effect, this video will be very much rooted in my own personal experience. So much so that I heavily debated creating it in the first place, as a platform with thousands of potential viewers isn't exactly my ideal place to be vulnerable. But after much internal deliberation, I decided to side with my heart in this matter, in hopes that by doing so, it's not only therapeutic for me, but potentially beneficial to some of you as well, even if the basis is majorly rooted in self-projection. But without further delay, let's discuss Pink Diamond's relatable history of abuse. Now, Pink Diamond, coded to be the child of the Diamond Authority's family structure, had always been both explorative and curious, very much like myself and countless others during early childhood. At times, this was entertained and commended as it provided an interesting aspect to the dynamic, but was at other times scolded as it was less inclined towards standards which predated their existence. Which is of course confusing at first, but over time with comprehension comes adaptation. My parents separated when I was very young, but by judicial decree were provided split custody of me. Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays were provided to my mother, whereas Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays were given to my father. I'd say the separation was interesting for my development, as my parents were completely different people, providing me with starkly different experiences on a regular basis. And so for the sake of analogies, I suppose you could equate my mom to Blue Diamond and my father to White Diamond. It's weird to put it in this way, but I go as far as to say that my empathy, compassion, and love for others were all things I inherited from my mom, whilst my intellect, vernacular, and bluntness stem from my father's influence. Traits that, at the end of the day, help make up the person I am, for better or for worse. Same as how Rose Quartz felt deeply towards others, advocating for positivity in a way that may inversely be seen as cold and ruthless. Contrary to Pink Diamond's struggles, however, my torment was, for the most part, one-sided. Prior to the split custody court decision, my father had every intention to coerce me towards his side, capitalizing on my childish fascination with extravagance. As it currently stands, I have every reason to believe that everything he did at that time was fueled by the ambition of collecting regular child support funds. Things like going to the circus, or regularly eating out at restaurants of my choosing. He'd buy all the snacks that I saw from television ads, and had the best television package ever with all the cartoon channels. But that all changed once the custody situation was finalized. We stayed home more often than not, and I was shamed as a 7-year-old for not single-handedly finishing the tons of unfamiliar snacks that I thought I wanted, causing such things to reach scarcity from then on. And suddenly we had no cable, excused by some nonsensical lie. Pink Diamond was made to see Homeworld's planetary conquests as glorious and amazing. She enjoyed interacting with the organic life forms, sure, but the idea of acquiring her own planet, her own colony, had her absolutely smitten. That is, until she saw the kindergarten for what it truly was, and that reality set in. And coincidentally enough, I specifically remember being pulled from my kindergarten class at times to meet with a school counselor. I mean, gosh, the room was just full to the brim with toys, and my eyes fixated on Hungry Hungry Hippos because it was all over the commercials at the time. And as I played, oblivious to my true purpose in that place, I was asked a question all too common at the time. Who do you prefer, mommy or daddy? Who's your favorite? Which, in retrospect, is just such a baffling question to me. But still, one that I would always answer truthfully. I love them both. Which is more than likely what influenced the judge's decision making to have things the way they were. Now, the rules of my father were far more restrictive and rigid than those of my mother's household. And I'd of course confuse the ways of the two worlds at times, but I managed. I was rose quartz with my mom and pink diamond with my father. And being between two opposing forces meant keeping secrets from them both. And as you can see with Garnet's temporary separation and the diamond's retaliation, secrets can hurt the people you care about the most. And I hated it. You're made to be sneaky and conniving when it's not necessarily even your nature, and you just feel like a Trojan horse no matter what side of the battlefield you're on, and it's not fun at all. Now, the disciplinary stance of my father was harsh, maybe even cruel. I was often beaten for reasons which mostly escape me, as their absurdity have at this point been overshadowed by the pain that followed. And honestly, it's only now with better understanding and certain bits of context that I'd very much rather not discuss, that I'm able to recognize these instances as not just beatings, but regularized abuse. It was just the two of us in a moderately sized condominium. When the time came, there was no place to run or hide, and even then, I would only succeed in mounting further agitation. But leaving no signs of damage is quite the calculated art form to which he was exceptionally learned. And I remember reaching out to the older sister most involved in my life for help, who we can equate to Yellow Diamond, as her often militant demeanor induces a strange sensation of fear within me even to this day, despite her still having a gentler side. But between her already being quite estranged from our father and expecting, then later having her own child, it doesn't seem as though my outcries reached her. We actually had a one-on-one conversation recently where she showed genuine shock towards my history of abuse that I figured she knew of. But yeah, all this went on from first grade up until 8th. Middle school was the darkest period of my life for reasons I couldn't and don't care to encapsulate within this video. But for sure, the situation with my father did not help. But the turning point for me was when he said something just like White Diamond, that he didn't need me. How he'd be better off without me. And that hurt more than anything else. So I left. With no warning to anyone, I left to my mom's house and refused to leave. Like Rose Quartz turning her back on Homeworld in favor of Earth. She couldn't take it anymore, and it was obvious nobody could or would save her except herself, so she did the hard thing. When I was made to go collect my things from his place a week later, I was terrified. But when I went, he just sat at his computer, indifferent to it all. This decision that had taken so much from me to do was nothing to him. And I want you to truly understand that. At the age of 14, in the 8th grade, I decided to leave. And my father, the adult in the situation, didn't even utter a word. Didn't even say anything or rebuke what was happening. Didn't fight for me. I mean, pride, sure, but you changed my diapers. You were there for my entire life. How do you just let that go and do nothing about it and not care? So, needless to say, it thoroughly dented my self-worth, and after being able to cut off my father, I had no issue closing myself off to plenty of other people. People who by no means deserved it, but beyond my best friend, I was done letting people in. I guess you could call him my pearl in that sense. But yeah, for a while there was just a void in who I was. And for years, I wouldn't see him, but even still, visions of him would plague my dreams for years, and I wish I could have been like Steven and just forgotten everything. But then again, I avoided pictures of him for so long that I eventually lost my grasp on his appearance. And so going into high school, I had no dad, which in all fairness, isn't exactly uncommon for a black kid in America. When Rose told Greg that she never misses home, I wonder if she really meant it. Because if I were to say that, I wonder if I could mean it. If I couldn't miss the good times out of disdain for the bad. Because even through all that bad, I still loved him, and have countless memories of him that I now hesitate to incorporate in conversation. Pink Diamond never had the chance to salvage her relationship with the diamonds, but I can't say the same for myself. The yellow and blue of my life, unknowing of how truly hard living in his world was for me, forced me to reunite with him. And with that, the years of fortifying my defenses and shielding myself collapsed on sight as I cried uncontrollably. And for a time, it was fine. So much so that if you've been with the channel for a while, you may remember him saving the day when I accidentally cut my microphone cord, and we all gave thanks to the Papa of Papa Slice. But due to certain events, we have become alienated once again, and I wonder if that'll ever change again. For now, I can't say I entirely care, but maybe I will when it comes to my eventual Steven. If he's still around, I wonder if I'll be willing to allow him a chance at being a grandfather like how he is with my siblings' kids. My siblings who each have their own respective baggage and dark times with him. I don't know, and hopefully that time doesn't come too soon because I'm not looking forward to thinking on that any further. And although I don't particularly enjoy the character of Pink Diamond, I will say that her experiences are fascinating and worthy of intrigue. And in knowing of her continued psychological and physical torment at the hands of those closest to her, I do feel that her inclination towards Earth being framed as a defection from a toxic environment rather than an insatiable kink for organics would have been a more powerful message. But nevertheless, Steven Universe continues to induce a level of self-assessment uncommon amongst Western cartoons, and at the very least, I feel as though that is commendable. This isn't a video I'm making in hopes for sympathy or pity or anything like that. My trials and tribulations have molded me into the person I am today, and at this point, I am at my happiest. So don't worry about me. You know, every now and again, I like to get a bit sappy with you guys, so if there's any personal stories you're comfortable sharing in the comments, then please do so. With the videos on Pad Paracha and Ruby and Sapphire's wedding way back when, I saw a ton of incredible stories, so hopefully we can foster the same sentiment with this one. And if you can connect it back to Steven Universe, even better. I'm just hoping that I haven't ruined White Diamond for myself through all of this because I swear their narcissism is like one and the same. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.